And we are limiting capacity to 50% in accordance with the governor's executive order 2020-50. Appreciate everybody's cooperation with that. We will begin with item 1, our prayer by Rabbi Revson, followed by the pledge led by Mayor Pro Tem Tom O'Rourke.
Almighty God, source of all blessing, source of all healing, source of all comfort, source of all prosperity, we beseech you in your abundant mercy to bestow your blessings upon all of the residents of this town. We ask for your blessings for our mayor, our town council men and women, our heads of departments, civil servants, for it is not axiomatic in your sacred tradition that when one of your children steps beyond the world of his or her own needs or wants to help, to serve another, this very act opens the doors of your blessings, the doors of your kindness, and it is for these blessings that we pray for. In your name we say, Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. I believe we have a motion to make some amendments.
Yes, sir. First of all, I'll put it on the agenda. Move for approval of the agenda, and then I want to make an amendment.
Second.
I believe we need to amend and then approve the amended agenda.
You can do it this way. Excuse me. This is appropriate as well, sir.
Absolutely.
Second.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I would move that we move up to this second after the agenda approval, the presentation of the order of the gavel.
So that's item 4C.
It's item 4C, yes, sir.
Would become 4A or precede item 4A.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries, so that will become first. Now the second.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we move up item number 9.1
Yep.
to 4B, right behind the one that my colleague just did.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion to move item 9.1, which is approval to name the Boardwalk at Shem Creek, to come after the new item 4A? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, let's get a vote to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. We have an approved amended agenda. Item 4A is a public hearing to receive public input regarding the Patriots Point Gateway intersection improvements. Mr. Morrison, our Transportation Director. And as I always say, we are required by ordinance at the close of both of these public hearings for me to gavel that public hearing close. It does not mean we're finished for the night, so just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I thought we just moved up the two agenda items.
Did I do that?
Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry.
It's all right.
Let's go to the, I did do that, didn't I? Let's move to what was item
4C.
4B?
C.
C.
4C.
And I believe that Mr. Santos
Yes, sir.
and Mr. O'Rourke are going to do the honors
And,
for the order of the gavel.
right, so
No, we're good. Yeah. I'll hand it out.
good evening, council, and all who's come tonight to see us in action. We really appreciate you coming. This is a special moment for us. We don't get to do this very often. This is a This is an award that, I guess in my 20 years, has only been handed out just a handful of times. This award is handed out to a very special person, Mr. Danny Causey. When I was a young fellow, really young, Danny started cutting my hair. It was probably about 55 years ago. My father would send me up to the barbershop to get my hair cut, and I thought, well, that's great. You know, he's not with me, so I'll just tell Mr. Causey just to take a little bit here and a little bit there. But Mr. Causey took a whole lot more. And I would come home and tell my dad how mad I was at Mr. Causey for not doing what I asked him to do. Little did I know that my dad had already called up and told him exactly what he wanted. So I'm sorry. For all those years, I was so angry with you. But then again, when I was 12 years old, they did a Most Valuable Player Award. Danny did with Causey's Barbershop, and I happened to win the award, so then he became a great guy again. But Danny, you're welcome. Come on up a minute. You know, I can't say enough for Danny. He's done so much for the community. He's been here for so long. I just wanted to read this real quick. It says, the Order of the Gavel presented to Danny Causey, owner of Causey's Barbershop, by Mayor Will Haney and Mount Pleasant Town Council, October 13th, 2020, in recognition of his many years of service to the town of Mount Pleasant and his appreciation of his support of the citizens and of his numerous community endeavors through his long-running local business. Danny, thank you very much, and it's an honor to be able to present this to you today. Thank you so much.
Very, very briefly, and then Howard, who has been having his hair cut by Danny for, I think he sets the record. We all know that the king here has done so much, but those of us that know Danny also know that his partner, Peggy, is also as responsible for the benefit of this town than anyone else. Even though his name's on it, we know you share this as well. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you, Gary, for doing this for Danny. Danny has been cutting my hair for a while. That was when he only had one barbershop. Now, I guess he's had up to 3 barbershops. 7 barbershops at one time. So that's a while ago, back in the early 70s. But Danny is the #1 sports aficionado in Mount Pleasant, maybe in the state, maybe in the United States. If you play it, Danny will display it. And that's, if you've ever been to his shop, you'll know what I'm talking about. I purposely invited 2 other friends of Danny and me, former Mayor Swales, Representative Mike Sotillo. Mayor, would you like to say a few words quickly?
I didn't want to, but you made it.
I know, but you need to.
Yeah. Danny, congratulations, brother.
Thank you, Billy.
You have deserved it. You stood on your feet more than any person I've known. But congratulations.
Thank you so much, Billy.
Good night.
Danny, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you from the entire East Cooper community, not as a resident of Mount Pleasant, but you've done so much for the town over the years and for the entire community that you live in. And we're so proud of you, and congratulations on this wonderful award. And everybody, by the testimony that's here today, all your friends and family are here with you. And we thank you for what all you did, and wish you well for many, many more years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Appreciate everybody coming. tell you something about Gary. His daddy would call me and tell me how to cut his hair, but his mother would call me and tell me how to cut his daddy's hair. He would cut at 1:30 every Saturday, whether he needed it or not. And she would say, don't cut so much off this time. And he said in the seat, he said, it's a little too long last time. But I appreciate y'all coming. I just did my best. My wife was my main helper along the way, and I'm so honored.
So cool. That was nice. I was lower mine.
Thank you all very much. And now, I believe I'm on the right page. Next week, we have moved the first recommendation from the Recreation Committee to the very next item. While we are on institutional Mount Pleasant names tonight, we will move on to one that has to do with the Magwood family. So I will turn it over to the chairman of the Recreation Committee for the recommendation, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The committee discussed the naming of the Boardwalk at Shem Creek and made a motion to recommend to council that the town, I'm sorry, it's fogging up. That the town name Shem Creek Boardwalk, the Magwood Boardwalk, in honor of Captain Magwood.
Second.
Well, I was just going to, that was great, he did that quickly, but
Sorry.
I just want to read something real fast. You know, the community suffered a great loss in losing Captain Magwood. I'd like to welcome the family. They're here today. Some of the family members are here today. Thank you very much for coming. Wayne and the Magwood family are part of the fabric of Mount Pleasant. You know, when people think about Mount Pleasant, they think of shrimping, and when people think about shrimping, they think about Wayne and the Magwood family. And Shem Creek has been an iconic part of the reason because of the Magwood family, and we would like to thank you for that. So the Recreation Committee recommended that we name the boardwalk over Shem Creek the Magwood Boardwalk, so I put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We could use discussion to make remarks. Go ahead, Tom.
The only thing I'd like to add, for those that don't know, a horribly tragic thing that happened to Wayne. But if Wayne was here and he knew we were going to do something for the family, he would stop and say, "Don't forget Junior." And that's why I'm glad that the committee has called this the Magwood family, because it has been a family. But I'm old enough to remember Junior, and he is somebody that we all will never forget in this community. He was the patriarch of everything that goes on down there. So I'm really happy, and again, no way am I diminishing what Wayne has done, but it all started with Junior, and that's why I'm glad you did the family.
Absolutely.
Great. Any other comments? I want to take this opportunity while the family's here too to thank our staff for their role in what the staff did to help with that wonderful memorial service at Waterfront Park. Was that last week or week before last? Whenever that was. Yeah. The time flies, but that was great. It was good to be there as a family and wrap our arms around each other as a community. So thank you to our staff for helping do that on very short notice. That was one of the most touching events I have attended in this town. Are we prepared to vote? Mm-hmm. All in favor of the motion to name the pedestrian walk at Shem Creek the Magwood Walk, the Magwood Bridge, please signify by
Magwood Boardwalk.
Boardwalk. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There aren't going to be any opposed. The ayes have it. Congratulations, and we will continue to work with y'all on other fitting things as well, like in the agenda. And I thank the Recreation Committee for bringing that to us. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are at item 4A, the public hearing. Brad, come back up. And If you are here to speak, you'll have the opportunity after the brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's public hearing is a required public hearing in accordance with our public participation guidelines for transportation projects. We'll advance here. Let's go the other way. And it's a project we've been working on for about 3 years now. It's funded fully through our capital improvements program. I think it's pretty obvious. It's a capacity improvement project at the intersection of Coleman and Patriots Point. And this details some of the lineage that's going to occur there in the project. It really addresses the development and demand that is within the Patriots Point gateway area. Funding sources come from a variety of different funding within the town: accommodations and hospitality tax, impact fees, TIF, that's in the TIF district, so we have TIF revenue in that also, and from the general fund at a cost of about $9.7 million. We've already started the right-of-way process. That'll continue on through next April. In the meantime, we'll overlap and start the bid process for procuring a contract, and that should get us going in the spring of next year with construction. So tonight, we're just here to receive any comments on the project.
If you are a member of the public and would like to speak to this, please come forward, give us your name and address in 2 minutes. Again, this is a public hearing for that item. Anyone? Going once? All right, seeing no public comment, I will gavel that public hearing closed. Thank you. Next is item number 4B, which is a public hearing that has to do with Carolina Park Land Use Table. I'll turn it over to Mr. Ulma.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. And my presentation will be shorter than this description. The Carolina Park Plan Development is a component of the development agreement. You see later on your agenda a proposed zoning amendment to allow a telecommunications tower. So this is the time for a public hearing that Council must hold on amending the development agreement, sort of by extension affecting the Plan Development District.
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone here from the public to speak to this item 4B in the public hearing? Anyone? You can come forward and have 2 minutes. All right, if I don't see anyone, I will gavel close this public hearing. Thank you very much. All right, we moved item C. We are now at item D, which is longevity awards. And I do want to say this is longevity of service to the town. This does not imply that their longevity is way up there, right? They're individuals. So, Jody, if you'll take it, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor Haney and members of council. It's my pleasure tonight to be able to recognize 3 individuals. And all 3 of these are for 25 years of service. So I'd like to call up first, would Todd Campbell please come forward? Stand over here for me, please. He's right here. Todd's dedication and work ethic during his time with the Public Service Department has been outstanding. The entire town greatly benefits from his experience, versatility and knowledge, and leadership skills. He sets an example to his crew by the level of service he demonstrates to our residents. Todd and his crew have also received countless thank you letters from the town residents who specifically thanks Todd's crew for assisting them, making their kids feel special by waving and honking their horns, and other exceptional acts of service that go above and beyond the scope of their jobs. Todd has worked his way up the ranks, starting his employment with the town as a laborer in the Waste Management Division in October of '95, and in 1996 was promoted to a vehicle operator, and in 2000 he was promoted to a heavy equipment operator. Todd became one of our waste management operator crew leaders in 2016, and he holds that position today. Because of his commercial driver's license, his skills can be used across the multiple divisions of our department, making him an invaluable asset to emergency events. The efficiency of our waste management crews is in part a result of his experience and skills as an equipment operator. Todd has risen to every challenge he has faced during the growth of the Mount Pleasant and has consistently delivered excellent service. Thank you for your service, and we're all so fortunate to have you, and congratulations on 25 years. Tommy Cannon, would you please come forward? Tommy was hired as a laborer for our infrastructure division in August '95, promoted to a vehicle operator in '96, and in 1997 he was promoted to an infrastructure foreman position, a position he still holds today. Tommy's position is one of the most important positions in the infrastructure division, as he is responsible for overseeing the stormwater infrastructure. His work ethic and drive set the tone for everyone who works around him. Tommy is known for finding creative and innovative solutions. If there's ever something broken or something that needs to be fixed, Tommy can find an answer even when there appears to be none. Tommy also plays a key role in our department as he is an essential worker during hurricanes and other natural disasters. Tommy shows great poise and knowledge when leading his team during these events. Tommy's dedication to performance with the Public Service Department has been and continues to be recognized across the infrastructure division in the town. His leadership and management skills can clearly be seen from his consistency of excellence with our town stormwater infrastructure. The town is very lucky to have someone like him. Tommy, congratulations on 25 years of service with the town of Mount Pleasant. And last but not least, Hillary Repick, would you please come forward? Hillary's been around a long time, and Hillary and I started many years ago. And Hillary started in the town as a laborer, believe it or not, in the Facilities and Grounds Division in '95. She was actually a custodian. Her strong work ethic and commitment to serve quickly led to the promotion to the administrative clerk in '97, where she's often praised for her quick learning, creative problem solving, and being a great team player. In 1998, a new program was started at the town, the Municipal Separate Stormwater Sewer System, or MS4. Hillary took the opportunity and stepped up to assist residents with all various stormwater concerns such as flooding hazards, drainage system conditions, environmental questions of our waterways. Hillary, in usual form, took the challenge in hand and is now considered by her peers to be one of the top stormwater managers in the Southeast region. One of the main goals of a successful stormwater program is to understand and prevent flooding on irregular rain events. Hillary has served in the Emergency Operations Center through hurricanes and other disasters, and has helped with the emergency planning for the town and the region. Since 1999, she has participated in the Charleston County's Project Impact, which is a committee of local community hazard-related employees and citizens working together to assist communities in Charleston County in becoming more disaster resistant. Hillary is still involved in the Project Impact to this day 20 years later. She became a certified erosion and sediment control inspector in '95 and has learned to work with the department and construction industry to educate and advocate for compliance versus enforcement, to choose to work with people and understand why they did a bad thing and just not find them and move on. She has used this public service-focused mindset to create one of the strongest construction inspection programs in the area, and is frequently contacted by others in the region and throughout the state for guidance and expertise in dealing with development. This year, she became a certified stormwater planner and is now reviewing all engineering plans and construction to prevent degradation, the water quality, to ensure adequate flood protection. Hillary started our spill team response team in 2005 and brought hazardous material operation training to the coworkers. in the department to handle small spills and better protect our creeks and waterways. 15 years later, that team has successfully responded to small spills from town equipment to prevent pollution and damage our sensitive local waterways. In addition to using stormwater duties, Hillary has proudly served on our town by managing some of the department's large projects. She was a project manager for the Children's Circle, which earned her a nomination for Employee of the Month. Hillary also worked closely with the Johnny Dodds Boulevard project to ensure that the proper drainage design and construction for the town's main thoroughfare. Hillary is the founding member of the South Carolina Association Stormwater Managers Association, SCASM, and served as president in 2003 and again in 2015. And in 2018, she was voted president of the South Seaton Stormwater Managers Association. Stormwater has become one of the most discussed issues within our community, and Hillary has worked tirelessly to provide a better tomorrow for the residents of Mount Pleasant. In addition to her duties with the town, Hillary has 3 children, has been heavily involved in the Girl Scout and Boy Scout, including currently serving as a scout leader for Troop 79, judged WEX robotics competitions for regional high schools, and other activities with her kids. Hillary was featured in last month's We the Women, interviewed by the Post and Courier, showcasing women in leadership roles in the Charleston area. Hillary has never met a problem she can't solve, and is someone who's passionate for helping others and serving the public is evident to all those who'd work beside her. Hillary, congratulations for 25 years of service.
Chief Mixon.
Good evening. Mayor and Council, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to recognize Kurt Jackman for 25 years of service to the town. Kurt began his career as a firefighter with the town in 1995. His knowledge and straightforward approach quickly proved that he would be a future leader within our department. In 2003, Kurt was promoted to the rank of lieutenant. In 2011, he was promoted to the captain. In 2015, he was promoted to his current rank of battalion chief. For 17 years of his fire department career, he has held a supervisory position within our department. Chief Jackman's success can be attributed to his willingness to place the mission above himself. He has served on our specialized rescue team, our hazardous materials team, and our wildland fire team, receiving multiple certifications in each specialty to ensure he and his crew were prepared for every situation. Chief Jackman is a certified rapid intervention team instructor and has trained our personnel on the methods and techniques necessary to rescue trapped firefighters. And for several years, he oversaw the hiring committee that recruited and interviewed new Mount Pleasant firefighters. Kurt is not only a servant to his community, but his nation. For 33 years, he has been a member of the Army National Guard and currently holds the rank of Sergeant First Class. In his service to our nation, he has been deployed twice to Iraq and Afghanistan. Kurt is a consistent and dependable leader, and in his role as battalion chief, he places his personnel first, always. Thank you for allowing me a moment to honor Battalion Chief Kurt Jackman for 25 years of service to the town.
Our pleasure. Is that it, Eric?
Yes, sir.
That's the last one, all right. Item 5 is approval of the minutes from the September 1st, 2020 meeting and the September 8th, 2020 Town Council meeting and the August 2020 financial statement, which I have right here. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Item number 6 is public comment. If you have signed up for public comment and you'd like to make one, please come forward when your name is called, and you have 2 minutes. We need your name and your address, including municipality, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 5 speakers signed up. The first is George Freeman.
Good evening. George Freeman, 1450 Bowman Road, Director of Community Activity for CAGE. I'd like to thank Mount Pleasant Planning Commission and Mount Pleasant Planning Committee for recommending disapproval of the rezoning of the park in the 6 Mile community. That is something we were very concerned about because we know there are developers lined up waiting to hear this council approve rezoning of that type. But I hope you follow the recommendations of the Planning Commission and the Planning Committee and disapprove of the rezoning in the 6 Mile community. I would like to take this time to invite all of you to take a trip down Rifle Range Road to Hamlin Road and make a left turn, and on your left, you will see an example of when you have houses in the community that are on the 12,500 square foot lot, where it's not packed in, but it sort of blends right into the community of the Hamlin community down there. And that's why we would like to keep it that way. And it can be done, because developers are doing it. I just noticed the other day that the developer on, can't remember the street's name, but it's off Old Georgetown Road, Smalls Road, I believe. He's finally developing his project, and his project is another example of the 12,500 square foot lot developments that will blend into the community, and it presents that open space that everybody talks about. In our community, you don't have to designate a specific spot because the entire community is open space. So again, I appreciate what the Planning Commission and the Planning Committee has recommended and hope that council follows through. Thank you.
Claudia Mazik.
Claudia Mazik, 1285 6 Mile Road. I'm also a member of Cage Organization, and I'm here about the ordinance number 20061, and hope that you say no to rezoning and keep the minimum lot size to 12,500 feet, and that at 1240 6 Mile Road, where there's a 11.54 acre tract that they want developed. And I live on that street, and you know, the traffic is getting worse, and when you put high density housing in an area like that, it makes it very hard for us to get around in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Perry Rourke.
Good evening, Perry Rourke, 2004 Brick Hill Parkway, Mount Pleasant. I'm here tonight to talk about ordinance number 20066, which is going to pertain to public comment, which I'll be voting on first reading tonight. Part of that ordinance states, council by majority vote may restrict the time period for public comments. I hope that that ordinance would not in any way suppress the residents of this town to be able to come up and provide public comment. When I see something restricting a time period, makes me wonder, are we going to all have a chance to be heard at council meetings? This is the only time during a council meeting that the public has the right to come up and provide comment on any issues that are being brought in front of this council and voted on. I certainly hope that y'all would vote no to any restriction that would not enable us to come up and provide comment prior to a vote on any issue. There's already enough issues with ordinances not being posted prior to council meetings for residents to review. It's happened on numerous occasions the past couple of months. There's also been issues where I've personally came and provided public comment on an ordinance only to find out that the ordinance had changed 24 hours later, and what I was commenting on wasn't even relevant at that point, but it had never been updated on the town's website. They had 24 hours and they never updated it. It would be nice if we showed up to a meeting and what you had in front of you to vote on was posted on the town's website for the public to view prior to us showing up to these meetings. That would alleviate a lot of the time for public comment. You know, that's one of the biggest problems is the information is not out there. It's 2020. There's plenty of technology. Even if it was changed an hour before, you could post it to the website so the residents can see it. I don't understand why that's not being done in the first place, but that might help reduce the amount of time people have to stand up here. But please vote against any ordinance that would suppress the residents of this town being able to provide comment. Thank you.
Keith Blanford.
All right, y'all. Keith Blanford, 1742 Central Avenue, Sullivan's Island, South Carolina. And I had to shave, and it's my birthday, so I'm not happy to be here. You know, like the mayor, I live on Sullivan's Island, but most of my work here is in Mount Pleasant. I work in Mount Pleasant and Mount Pleasant all the time. Mr. Causey cut my hair when I was in the United States Navy, so I think it's fair for me to be able to be involved in public comment. So I'm here again. I'm giving you the information that I have. I've received over 250 emails regarding your attempts to do this motion about the public comment, and you're missing it again. People are interpreting this, and rightfully so, as a continued effort to erode the individual rights. Essentially, people are seeing this as an effort to stop public comment, to keep people from participating in the First Amendment, which is okay, because now we're looking at other things that have happened around the country, with this public health crisis. Here, look at this council alone. We've had people here in this council who have made efforts locally to infringe on the Second Amendment, here, locally. We've had people here who have tried to use the public health system in order to circumvent the First and 14th Amendment, here. And they're not going to stop with COVID. They're going to do other things. So people are deeply concerned. And where does it start? I mean, here's what I got. Ms. Whitley made a motion to draft language that makes it $100 a civil fine to provide false information at a public meeting. That's what I got. Maybe that's wrong. But if people think that, don't you think that's going to chill free speech? And we have radical leftist ideas here in Mount Pleasant, in the South. There's no place for it here. And this continued curtailing of our individual rights is really having an impact on our communities. And people really, really dislike each other. So if there's a reason to do this right now, go ahead. But I would recommend postponing something like this to see the validity of it. Is this a consistent problem? Are people up here constantly lying? And if you're saying that we're lying to you, you lied to us. The masks don't work. You say they do. You lied to us. So does this apply both ways? So thank you, and happy birthday to me in the Navy.
Mike Novielli.
Good evening, Mike Novielli, 221 Bayfront Drive, Mount Pleasant. I'm here also commenting on the proposal to amend the code regarding public comment, which in my opinion, is an attempt to stifle free speech. I relocated to Mount Pleasant from my home state of New York to escape the devastation there caused by years of progressive policies. I moved here to Mount Pleasant and to assimilate into the local community because of all it had to offer. I didn't come here to change it. Many of my fellow expats relocating to the South feel the same way. However, since I arrived, I've noticed dangerous outside influences that are beginning to poison the well here. Ms. Whitley, according to the town's website, you serve on the town council and came to Mount Pleasant by way of California and Illinois, two other poorly governed states that have run themselves into the ground through the same progressive policies. I would have hoped that you too relocated here to enjoy the existing culture and values, not to change them. Well, it's recently come to my attention and other residents here that you are an avid supporter of Black Lives Matter. So much so that I'm told you hung a banner in support of this organization from a balcony on your home. As we know, BLM is an organization in part responsible for the recent violence and riots occurring throughout American cities and towns, and its leaders are self-avowed Marxists. That organization's values have absolutely nothing in common whatsoever with those of the Low Country, or most Americans for that matter. Now coming to know this about you, it's becoming clearer to me every day how the town of Mount Pleasant and the surrounding towns are moving further and further to the left. As we know what the result will be. Look no further than New York, California, and Illinois. I think the town council's time is best spent on issues that matter to the town, not restricting free speech of its citizens.
That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 7 on the agenda is consent agenda items, items A and item B. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Final readings of consent agenda items A and B.
Moving on to item 8, planning, new business. Mr. Elma.
Motion to approve items 8A, 1, and 2.
Second.
All right, just a second. All right, to approve 8A,
1 and 2, which go together.
Got it. 1 and 2, which are related to Carolina Park. All right, we have a motion, have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to pass items 8A, 1 and 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm sorry, was that a no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a no. Motion carries.
1 no.
1 no, yes.
First reading ordinance number 20067, and first reading ordinance number 20059.
Item 2 is passed. This brings us to item 3, and let me ask, did I get information that there's been a request to defer, or am I, no?
A later case has a request to defer.
Thank you very
Mayor.
much. Okay.
Yes, these two items are related to approximately 12-acre tract of land at 1240 6 Mile Road. The first request is an annexation petition. The second request is to zone the property R4, medium density residential. Our comprehensive plan recommends community conservation land uses. The request again is for R4. The property is currently improved with 31 manufactured homes. Here's the property located on 6 Mile Road. Here is the comprehensive plan designation, the yellow showing the community conservation areas. And you see here in crosshatch,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
unincorporated.
Yes, sir.
I have an email that says that the applicant has requested deferral for new business items 3 and 4 related to Watts Park.
I was thinking we had gotten such.
So, motion to defer.
Second.
Hold on just a second.
Excuse me.
Let me check with legal.
Yes.
I didn't remember that. I thought it was the other.
It may have come in later today.
All right.
Let me just ask this. We don't attest to the validity of that email, obviously, but council can defer because council chooses to defer. Is that
Yes,
not-
sir, the request, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but to this council can hear the matter. 3, 4, you can defer one, defer neither, or vote on either or.
Okay.
Whatever council wishes.
Yeah,
I thought I saw the same email requesting a deferral,
My
yes,
mi-
and the clerk says yes.
That's my mistake.
Okay, that's okay. Things happen on the day. So the chair would entertain a motion to defer items 3 and 4 at the request of
So
the
moved.
applicant.
Yeah.
We have a motion, we have a
Second.
second. Any discussion on deferring? This is items 3 and 4. All right, all in favor of the motion to defer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, before you move on,
Yes, sir.
I know we've just deferred these. I can't remember how many times this has been deferred. This is something that is not good for the community. The community that has over 31 residents. The Planning Committee spent a lot of time at its meeting last week going over this. We also had a public comment about this, actually 2 public comments. And I am, for one, not pleased with the fact of what's going on at this location. There are people who can't afford to move. And I think, and I've suggested, that if the owners want us to do something, they should think about those residents and try to help them. I just want to say that, and I also want to say that I would not have been in favor of doing R4 on this site either, and neither was the committee. And I'll be quiet because I know
Right,
we've already.
we're out of discussion. We have voted
I
to
know
defer.
that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're on item 5. Nope, we're on item 4. Nope.
Item 5.
Item 5. First reading of an ordinance to providing for annexation of another tract, 3.95 acres. Mr. Olin.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 5 and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 20062.
Item number 6, please.
Move to defer to November as requested by the applicant.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion to defer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. We're moving right along. Item 7,
Motion to approve.
Second.
we have a motion to approve and a second. This is about the the workforce housing, affordable housing tract being done privately. We have a motion and a second. Just for the record, we can see the Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously, as did the Planning Committee. It's a good project for our citizens and done in the private sector. All in favor of the motion to approve? Oh, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make one comment here. We've had various times in the last couple of years when we spun off the task force quite a while back, and then a nonprofit was created, Mount Pleasant Housing for All. We have representatives here tonight who have worked incredibly hard on this project, as well as the one that's already under construction. And at the time that an idea came up about the town purchasing land and then somehow involving developers in that, I had asked the question, I said, why don't we see if there's a way that developers who own the land can make this work and get it done so that taxpayer money is not at risk, and so that we solve this long-running problem that just gets worse and worse here, as well as many other communities, for having affordable housing for people who work in the area. And so yes, the mayor has pointed out, and I'm glad that he did, that this is a private developer doing this, and I'm just thrilled that we can have a small part, which is a little bit of rezoning, to help make this happen, but not put taxpayer money at risk. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 20064.
Item 8 is an ordinance to amend provisions of the chapter of the flood damage prevention, as explained to me by legal yesterday. This is like a technical wording, a technical correction. It's not a major policy change, but I will defer to Mr. Ullman.
I'll move for approval, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. Again, this came out of committee with a 4-0 recommendation. I guess if there were any concerns, we would hear from the committee. All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading, 20065.
This moves us to old business. Number 1 is final reading, and everybody keep your seats, of the comprehensive plan. I know. How many times has this been brought back? I just want to make one editorial comment. Something that lasts for 10 years and affects the vision and the livability and the look and feel of our community is worth getting it right, and I commend council for hanging in there to get it right. It's easier to get it right the first time than it is to fix it down the road. So let's go through what the Planning Committee did and see what the several additional amendments might be.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. From their meeting last week, Planning Committee recommended some additional revisions to the language in the draft comprehensive plan. These relate to the overall vision statement, the focus again on 2 redevelopment centers, and then some additional questions that deal with various action steps dealing with residential development. So we'll go through those quickly. You see here the language that has been added to expand to reflect the committee's direction on making sure we explicitly express the overall desire to maintain the suburban character within our community. And the vision statement itself then adds this language such that you would have a sustainable, resilient, high-quality suburban community which continues to reflect family-friendly attitudes and embrace its small-town roots. So that is item number 1. Item number 2 deals with the question of residential development within the redevelopment centers. If you recall, we have 3 currently designated in the plan, up at Town Center, moving this way at I-526 and 17, and then the Houston Northcutt area here. The committee's recommending, as they worked with staff, that we would, in this draft of the plan, remove the redevelopment center designation from Town Center. It would be retained as a commercial designation. For the 2 other redevelopment centers, we did some additional calculations and have more accurately identified the acreage within these 2 centers by taking out interstate areas. Considerable property within both of these areas is in roadways, so we have a more accurate developable acreage figure. And then there's a statement that would add general language that stresses the preference for non-residential uses, but that some residential could be considered. And so you see an additional statement here that focuses on pursuing economic development opportunities and commercial development over residential. The next component of this is where you would specify sort of an overall target or cap of potential residential within those 2 remaining areas, and you would multiply that new development acreage by 1 unit per acre to get grand totals of 175 units for the center we're located here, and then 277 units for I-526. So this gives sort of an approximation and sets the tone or expectations of what might happen within these 2 geographic areas. However, staff recommended that the way that this be handled would be that any developer proposing to redevelop in one of these areas and wishing to include residential in that would have to use a PD rezoning that would then come through the entire review process of public hearing, planning commission review, and council review, so that you would have the opportunity to make decisions at those times whether or not that development proposal meets the objectives in the plan and continues to satisfy that vision.
And let me see if I'm straight. That's on these 2?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. And Town Center comes off the map, Mayor.
Got it.
And then the other part that we have here is that regardless of what you do with these 2 redevelopment centers, changing this direction and vision, current zoning under the Boulevard overlay already allows options for residential. So whatever you do here with the vision that might reduce the residential opportunity, we need to move forward quickly to eliminate the residential capability that's already built in to the existing zoning. That's something we expect to work on and already have on the docket, Mayor and Council, as part of our zoning code update, which is ready to begin this month.
Okay.
And the last piece.
Any we're not in discussion or debate, but just any questions on the info before we move forward?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
The additional discussion dealt with the action component of the plan. And under the residential development, there are a series of action steps that would be looked at in the future to be able to implement this plan. These are R is regulatory and G are guidelines. And there were questions about some of these, making sure it was clear about how these would operate. Staff points out that these are not automatic. Adopting the plan doesn't make these ordinance changes or new guidelines go into place. You would need to amend the zoning ordinance as it would exist in whatever state existed 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, when you get around to taking these steps. And then depending on the approach, if a change were made to the zoning ordinance, certain things could even have additional review, like a special exception requirement by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And ultimately, as we would work with the plan, implement the plan, some of these would even drop off the list or may not be pursued at the time that they would come up. However, the committee wanted to make sure that we included some additional language in the front that would make it clear that those action steps are not designed to materially change the character of neighborhoods. And so that recommendation and that language is included in a number of places in the introduction to that section of the plan. It also deals with infill development and the same issue of making sure it's compatible and, you know, seeks to maintain the character of an area to the utmost degree. So those are those 3 points. There was one additional question today, and I can cover it if you are interested. Ms. Hyatt and Ms. Whitley had one that I can share, and it relates to this as well. There's another earlier in the table. RG4 talks about modifying the boulevard overlay districts. And in light of what I just described before with the residential, staff suggests that to make it extra clear that this is under commercial development, if you see that green horizontal bar there in the middle. So it really doesn't address residential. It was really focusing on the commercial. And so one way to make this even more explicit would be to amend the language as shown in red and substitute it for the first sentence so that other recommendations of plan, including appropriate changes related to residential uses that might already be allowed by right under the existing overlay zoning. So that it would leave no doubt that residential is to be looked at when the Boulevard Overlay District is revisited. And with that, Mayor, I'll turn it to you for discussion.
Thank you very much. Let me turn to the committee. You know, we have been discussing this for a long time. Y'all have been over the details. I think it would be good, if it's the will of council, of course, if these are the changes that y'all worked on after so many tries and you recommend that we just do these, then if the committee would bring that forth as a recommendation, let's do it. But we need a motion before we all get into discussion about how we feel about the comp plan.
Do we need to move to approve first, then move to amend?
Yes, ma'am.
I move to approve the comp plan.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second, so we are in discussion.
And
Is
I would
that
like
the
to-
comp plan with?
No, now I have to make the
Gotcha.
motion to, now I make a motion to amend the comp plan to include the council discussion and action as set forth by Mr. Ulma. This item's one.
That's my question. Is that all of them?
Yes. that's
All of the proposed amendments that we just heard?
Yes.
All right.
And there now are 4.
Yeah, there's 4.
Four?
And
Okay.
I
Please
second.
restate the motion again.
I move that we amend the comprehensive plan to incorporate the changes 1, 2, 3, and 4 as set forth by Mr. Ulma.
Okay.
I second it.
All right. So we are discussing and debating amendments to the comp plan. So this is a subsidiary motion. Is there a second? We have a second. All right. We're in discussion. Mr. Santos.
Yeah, I just had a question. Any changes you mentioned earlier about changes, that would require a supermajority of council, correct?
That would be another ordinance amendment, Mr. Santos, that's a recommended action in the plan. So that would be a subsequent piece that we would look at. So
It's not
amending
in
the
effect
code,
until we pass the plan.
passing
Right.
the plan
Yes,
doesn't
sir.
change the ordinance.
It's
Right.
not in effect until we pass the comprehensive plan.
Yes, sir. And then we'll move through and address those ordinance that would need to be changed and bring those to council's, planning commission and then to council's attention. Yes, sir.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yes. Ms. Landon and then Mr. O'Rourke. Yes.
Mr. Santos, that question makes me a little nervous, I think. Only because what we don't want to do, I think, is pass something that we then, us and those after us, will not just take a vote and change the plan. There's been, in my opinion, an awful lot of people, an awful lot of staff time, an awful lot of everything to get us to this point. And I think it looks pretty good. That's one person's opinion. So I hope that there certainly has to be something in place for if something happens, but I wish the discussion could be like supermajority or something to not make it.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, so I should pay attention then, huh? Is that what you're saying? I
love his honesty.
I just hate the discussion of change, on the first day that we're doing this.
We'd already talked about it, I just thought it would be included here, but I was told that it will be.
It's already
Final reading, so.
Yeah,
All right.
it's already
Sorry about
included
that.
in
That's
the
okay.
plan draft.
I wasn't on that
You
committee.
did a good job.
But legally, as we stand now, a majority of council can pass this plan, which will then affect the supermajority to alter it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It is in the plan, but ordinances after
Have
the
to
fact
follow.
would need to be changed and to incorporate it as part of our code.
Zoning.
In the
So if-
final reading, right?
Sir?
The final reading of the plan will incorporate that.
No, sir, this is final reading, but we'll have to address that as a separate ordinance in our code after this plan, hopefully.
We'll put that on the
is approved.
PJL
Oh, I
committee
thought we had
for
already
November.
done that. I'm sorry. I for some reason thought we had already done that.
We did.
Now, the sequence of events would be that you've made it clear in the plan, we've added an extra step that says, take a look at a future ordinance amendment that would establish a supermajority when plan amendments are considered. That has to be codified in the zoning code. So that has to follow all the way back through now to make actual text amendments to the zoning ordinance, and we would be working on that next.
Because the plan is not an ordinance.
Yeah, Ms. Landing has the floor.
So I have two things. First of all, one of the amendments I had requested, I think you might have put it in there, but I can't tell because the wording is different. It was about the idea that if we have, that we will attempt to keep something in keeping with the general area around it. This was specific to the historic settlement communities, and I said we shouldn't be attempting, we should be doing. And it looked like you had something in there about keeping things like the same in the same area, but where was that? Is that in there?
It is in a different section, Ms. Landing, and that language has already been incorporated
Okay.
from prior discussions. So it's been building along the way, and those changes have been added.
And that's not an
And
amendment
then
that we had to do anything about
This
tonight?
is not an
Okay.
amendment. It's already integrated into the plan.
Okay, and then I heard Councilmember Whitley mention several times a fourth thing. Where's the fourth one? Is it just on the
The
next page?
fourth one is just that extra language, excuse me, back up one. Item 4, this
Oh,
was just
okay.
added, so it wasn't in the list.
Thank you.
That you would amend page 612, RG4, to include additional language.
Any other discussion? Mr. Chapman?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, in the committee, I think I'm the one that voted against specific items 1 and 2. I did vote in favor of bringing this out as a whole after discussion completed. My reason for commenting on the very specific items was that the comprehensive plan is a macro form. The micro form comes when you start looking at individual areas and start making and reviewing the developer's plans. As Mr. Ullman mentioned, will happen as things come forward. I think my cohorts felt that it was important to have specifics to direct the developer on how to present his plan. So I'm going to vote for this because we spent too much time not to get it out. But I think the macro approach is what a comprehensive plan was supposed to be. And I just wanted to say that I did vote to go forward with the whole plan, even with the suggested changes. And I'm going to vote for it tonight.
Thank you very much. Any other comment? All right, so first, we will vote on the proposed amendments. The motion is to amend the comprehensive plan to include the 4 amendments presented tonight, amendments 1, 2, 3, and one of them may not have been numbered, but we heard the explanation for what that was. All in favor, this is on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so the amendments are included. We have an amended comprehensive plan to vote on the final passage of the comprehensive plan. That motion is already on the table. Is there any further discussion now that it's amended? All right, all in favor to pass the comprehensive plan as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very, very much.
final reading, ordinance number 20015.
He's so happy.
That's a big deal.
Your planning director might go see Mr. Causey for a haircut.
And I will say one thing, a little bit of chair privilege here. A lot of us were elected at different times. We come from different perspectives. We worked and came up with a comprehensive plan that we all supported. I think this is a wonderful day for the town of Mount Pleasant, that we came together and we did something that we all agreed on, and our citizens don't have a divided vote on a comprehensive plan. So I'm really proud of our town and our council for doing that, and all the folks that got us here as well, the citizens who did all the work on that. That's item B1, old business. Item B2 is final reading of an ordinance that we may have to have Mr. Pagliarini explain a few things about it, but if you'll take that for us, Mr. Ullman.
Yes, sir. In light of COVID-19 and potential uses and activities that have been occurring, we embarked on ordinance change to add another type of temporary use into our code. While we were doing that,
Motion to approve.
Second.
And we need to move to amend, right, to include amendments? Is
I
that
will
correct?
show you this section deals with our existing.
Let me deal, we have a motion and a second to approve, so we're in discussion, so you can continue, and then we can get to motions to amend.
This first page and second page deal with our existing temporary uses like fireworks sales and those kinds of things. So we clean those up as part of this. The piece that you're really focused on is at the bottom of this page for what we call temporary uses that are quote-unquote semi-permanent or permanent part-time. It's hard to figure out the language. This is an entirely new class, and so this was the language that went to first reading in the red. And since then, at Planning Committee, there are some other uses that have come up, like the use of homeschool. They're called learning pod activities, those kinds of things that are happening. And so we said, rather than the council extending an emergency ordinance, we could hardwire that into this code as well. So what you see here in yellow is additional language, so
Motion
beyond
to
first
amend
reading.
as shown here.
We have a motion to include the amendments as presented,
Second.
Yes.
and a second. Any discussion on the amendments? Are we prepared to vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion to include the amendments as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We prepared to vote on the ordinance. This is, yes, an ordinance as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the ordinance as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Final reading, ordinance number 20057.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Ullman.
Thank you.
Okay, so this moves us to item 9, committee action items. Recreation Committee, we already moved item number 1. Item number 2 is approval to create a capital fund account to house donations for a maritime heritage center. Yes, ma'am.
This item relates to, I've been in talks with members of the Magwood family, and they are working towards a bronze statue to be placed at the Boardwalk. And this would be something that would be iconic, something that everyone in town would come to that Boardwalk, would take a picture with it, become a thing for the town. But they're in the process of putting a 501c3 together to create a maritime heritage center and raise the funds for this Boardwalk. But in the interim, because it takes 6 to 8 months to get your 501c3 status, we were hoping that the town could create a capital fund account to house donations on behalf of this future maritime heritage center.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I had just a brief report that I received, just to read, what came out of committee. The Recreation Committee recommends to council the creation of a capital fund account by the town to temporarily house donations for a maritime heritage center until the donations can be transferred to an established 501c3.
Sure. All right.
And I'd like to move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Just a quick clarification, this is separate and distinct from the one for the Arts Center, obviously.
This is
But it would be
specifically-
done in the same fashion, not commingled with public funds or anything like that, just to clarify. All right, any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So action item number 3, the Recreation Committee recommends to council that the normal Mount Pleasant Christmas Parade be held again this year. Make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. That would put us into discussion.
I'd be glad to start off if you'd like.
Go right ahead.
I had a meeting with, our police department, fire department, recreation department, and public services department about having the parade this year. We have to start, if we're going to have the parade, we have to start soon, to start planning and securing things like the light trees that'll be lined down the highway and things. So we talked about it. We talked about putting it on. We talked about a lot of different things, but as it came out, it went to committee, and the committee unanimously voted to proceed with the parade. And therefore, that's why I made the motion to proceed.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
Councilmember Santos, how many people would you say normally attend the Christmas parade?
Well, there's thousands, but I will tell you, we got 1.2 miles worth of road that stretches them out. So it's really not as, I mean, I've been going to parades now for 60 years here. It's not as crowded as it is when we were coming back the other way. There's not as many areas. There are some, but there's not as many areas. And so certainly being in the middle of the highway, away from everybody on either side, it puts us, certainly social distancing, and we can do that easily on all the floats and on everything that we do, and the citizens will do the same when they're on the side. So actually, where we're going now is probably a much better way than what we did before, because there's less areas, I think, for people to congregate. But there could be thousands, and we plan on live streaming it as well, so people who don't want to come can stay home with their children and watch it on TV. And the people who want to come can come out there and social distance, wear their mask, and do like they should. And we can have a parade, and the kids get to see Santa Claus. So, it's been a tough last couple of months, and I think this gives us an opportunity and our citizens an opportunity to come out and have some festive time with their children.
Ms. Landing?
I just want to thank you, Councilman Santos, for bringing this forward, since there was discussion apparently about possibly changing or eliminating it this year and so forth. And every time I've seen something come out this year that says either in the end of this year or even next spring or even next summer that something is being not postponed, in many cases canceled because of COVID, I think, my goodness, did they look at all the possible ways to do this thing? And here we have an outdoor event that everyone looks forward to, all of us do, and certainly we don't know where things will be with this virus by that point, but I think we cannot just say, let's just get rid of 2020. Let's try to make this a great year by the end of the year, as horrible as it's been for everybody up until now. And I think having something that feels normal, that we can actually go outside, celebrate the holidays together, and people can make their own decisions about where they stand and how they do that on the floats as well as on the, I know we'll be physically distancing on our float, but people can make their own decisions on that. So thank you so much for this proposal.
Go ahead.
Ms. Corley next.
And I think people can also choose to participate or not, right? So it could be that nobody wants to do it or that we have a great turnout. So thank you, yes.
I have a few questions. First of all, Mr. Pagliarini, you and I met yesterday, and based on your advice and what you told me, I believe, and unless something has changed, that all public gatherings like that are governed by an executive order from the governor. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, that is correct, and for the benefit of council, so all council understands that discussion. The current legal standard is the Order 2020-63. That replaced Order number 50 by the governor. This was filed on October 2nd, 2020. I say current legal standard because these orders can and do change, as we have seen. What is valid today may not be tomorrow or in 3 months. So we are operating under the current standard. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'll explain further at least what we discussed. Gatherings are defined. There are emergency restrictions on gatherings. Parades are one of those items. And let me be clear, there's no prohibition against these. They are not legally prohibited. If they occur, there are requirements that the responsible party do their best to comply with current guidelines, CDC and DHEC guidelines, utilize applicable sanitation proceedings, sanitation, social distancing, and hygiene guidelines. So those are the requirements. They're further spelled out in the order, and that is at least what the order provides, sir.
Cool.
Does that include compulsory wearing of masks?
Yes, sir, I should add that as well. That is part of the order. And in these circumstances, in gatherings, masks are required.
Okay. And what is the state, is that a civil or criminal infraction if someone is cited under, this is the state, not the town?
Yes, sir. Mayor, Section 14 of the order authorizes law enforcement officers to enforce the order as written. And if the precise language is or otherwise violates any provision of this order issued by the undersigned in connection with the state of emergency, to operate under state statute 16-7-10A would be guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction, fined not more than $100 or imprisoned not more than 30 days. So it differs.
It's a criminal, not a civil.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's correct.
Did the committee consider that at y'all's meeting? Were y'all given that information?
We have control over our parade and what we're doing. What the citizens do is another thing. And I think, like I've seen everywhere I go, people are wearing masks. People are doing the right thing. You know, I look in the newspaper every day. They didn't even mention us, you know, in the last couple of times. I think people are doing the right thing, and I think they will do the right thing. Certainly, we can control it on our floats and on what we're doing. But I think, as she said, people will show up. They're going to wear their mask. They'll be a part of it. But we can't stop them. We can't make them wear masks. I mean, I think they'll do the right thing. They want to come out and enjoy the parade. They don't want to get sick. They don't want their kids getting sick. They want to come out and enjoy their parade. So if they decide not to wear a mask, well, that'll be to their own peril, not the town's.
I'm just asking what the committee had to consider before it voted. Did the committee have information that the state requires that to be a criminal misdemeanor for not wearing a mask at a gathering for which we're responsible? I don't believe it was.
We have gatherings out at our waterfront park. We had the opera at the park. Nobody brought up about getting a penalty for getting caught without their mask at the opera of the park. I mean, so what I'm saying is, they have to do due diligence. The citizens have to do due diligence. If they're going to come out there, they got to obey the rules. And if they don't, they do it to their own peril, not ours. And if they don't want to come, we're going to live stream it so they can stay home with their children and watch it on TV. So I think that has nothing to do with what we're doing. We're going to make sure the people in the parade are doing the right thing. And if they don't, then that it's going to be to their own peril. But we can't stop the parade because we're worried about somebody not wearing their mask. That's crazy.
And Mayor, question?
Yes, ma'am.
So it says authorizes, but not mandates, right? So it's not like, we're going to have half the police department there, right? Aren't we anyway for the parade?
Well, Chief Ritchie and I spoke this morning, and that's another topic. If you don't mind, we'll get to that in a second.
Fine.
Sure.
But it doesn't say you have to give somebody a $100 ticket if they don't have their mask at the parade, right?
It says it authorizes, that's all.
It says we can, but not that we have to.
To be precise, ma'am, the correct term is authorizes, not requires. Those are different terms.
Whatever that means.
Just to be precise.
The other thing is a gathering of this size, and I spoke to the governor's office today, does have to be approved by the Department of Commerce at the state.
Staff would initiate that request, sir.
Right. And that request can be denied. And when they called me back this afternoon, what they said was some around the state have been approved.
Right.
But there's, a Christmas parade in Cades or in Lodge might have a few hundred people. Chief Ritchie and I spoke this morning. We're expecting we could have 5,000 to 10,000 people. We're the fourth largest municipality in the state of South Carolina. We're going to be looked at differently. The places that got approved also may not have been early hotspots for the virus as we have been. They probably don't have the tourism that we have. What I was told was don't count on it being approved. You don't know if it's going to be approved or not. So if we put all our eggs in one basket, we only have one plan. If that plan gets disapproved, we got nothing for our citizens. So, Chief, if you don't mind, I know there's some concerns, and Ms. Corley, what I wanted to say to you is if half our police force is out there, we risk exposure to half of our police force. And how many police officers might be there, Chief? Yes, please.
First of all, this is certainly not a position I want to be in,
Yes.
standing for mayor and council and having to have this discussion. But I'm going to share with you my concerns, okay? But I'm going to start by saying I'm more than anybody else in ready for normalcy. I'm more than anybody else. I want parades. I want not wearing masks. I want to get back to normal. What I'm going to provide you is factual numbers. And then at the end of this meeting, you guys will make the decision. And we, as the town staff, will do our job like we always do, whichever way it goes. If we have a parade go forward, we will handle it professionally like we always do. So I just want to make sure that's known, okay? Potentially, yes, sir, it could be. We expect no less than 10,000 people, no less than. I know in the past we've had up to 30,000. That's getting information from our rec department. If this parade goes on, we're talking about other communities coming over here. I mean, we want people to come. We love our community. They're going to come over here and participate. You ask about staff. I will have no less than 85 police officers on the route itself. That's not counting support staff, but actually on the route. I understand it'd be about 46 firefighters, and I believe it's over 70 public works folks. That's not counting our rec people. Is there a potential for exposure to us? Yes, there is. And I was asked before, well, Chief, aren't you already being exposed when you handle regular calls? And we are. There's a difference. When we get a call, our telecommunicator dispatchers, they go through a bank of questions that they ask. At least we go in with some knowledge of what we're going into so we can wear the proper PPE. With this number of people, we honestly won't know what we're dealing with or what level of infection, if any, we're dealing with. So I think that's important that I share with this council and mayor. I've spoken with other law enforcement leaders, not just in the Low Country, but around the state, and many of them are canceling their events, for the same reasons and same concerns that I have. They, like me, want parades, they want normalcy. I spoke with Chief Keel with SLED just recently. He's the top cop in the state. And although he's not responsible for approving the permits, his agency gets called across the state for these big events. And he says normally when they're approved for X number, they wind up doubling, tripling, quadrupling. And it becomes a negative event, whereas what should have been a positive event. And that's coming straight from Chief Keel. Maintaining and enforcing the social distance. Gary, I appreciate what you're saying about the distance of Coleman Boulevard, but we're talking about linear. I'm not talking about the depth of Coleman Boulevard. Folks are going to bunch up. They do every year because it's a great parade. It's beautiful. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love driving my cruiser down there, but they're going to bunch up. They're going to push forward. They're going to want to see what's going on. I heard you talk about the mask versus non-mask. That group's going to be out there. We have a very defined line in our town about how people feel about that. I'm afraid we're going to be involved with police getting called, well, he doesn't have a mask or he's too close to me, to where we're going to be in an enforcement situation. The last thing we want during a holiday parade, Christmas parade, is dealing with those type of things. We want people to be happy. We want this to be a great event. And lastly, I'll just share with you, November 3rd is the election. We know about civil unrest. These big events are not immune to that. I'm talking to my local law enforcement leaders here in the Low Country, across the state, nationally. We're having to look and take that very serious. Will something like this become targeted for protest, whichever direction the vote goes? Because I think we all know we're not going to know who's going to be president, a month later. There's be a lot going on. So I just wanted to share those with you, the council. That's my job. I'm not comfortable up here doing this, but it's my job to, full disclosure, tell you what I'm concerned about, and leave you with whatever your decision is. I will support it, as all staff will. And if we go with the parade, we'll handle it professionally like we always do. And I'm glad to take any questions.
Mr. Chapman?
Chief, I didn't hear any suggestions of an alternate, and I don't think any of us want to stop having a parade as such for our community. But could there be alternatives where the parade is actually taken to the neighborhoods instead of having the parade at one point where everybody congregates?
There certainly is, sir, and I've heard that discussion. It wasn't, I can't take credit for that. It wasn't my idea by any means. But that has been discussion. I have heard that, much like the birthday parades and anniversary parades and veteran parades we've been doing since the pandemic. But we could certainly do that. If that's the will of this council and this mayor, we could do that.
So, similar to what the schools have done with teachers, for example.
Yeah, but
Going into neighborhoods with our police, with our fire department, with sanitation, as a parade to the community where you're there, people can watch you from their house. If they want to come out on their deck or whatever, they can do that. But it's not in one place. It's spread out. So I just throw that out there as an alternative, and that's why I asked if anything like that might have been considered as an alternate, because, I think we want to be the last place to have a super spreader. And this has that potential to become what's called a super spreader. We can avert that by taking the parade to the people, for whatever it's worth.
I agree with that, Mr. O'Rourke.
I don't see where that's a viable alternative at all. Unless we were to go to every single neighborhood in this town. That's a 4-day parade. The second thing is, if it's not that long, we're a public body. We'll have to tell the public where we're going to be in the neighborhoods, and I believe there will be people that will come to those neighborhoods in the yards of these families that don't want them there. Nothing precludes any of the safety things that you mentioned. So we need to suck it up and do it as best as we can, or not. And I'm always somebody that wants to listen to staff. And B, I think safety trumps everything. Everything we do, safety trumps it. But I think there are families out there that are concerned about this. I think there's families out there that aren't. That's America. That's where we live. And we represent both, actually. So those that are nervous of this, don't come. Those that don't want to put their child on a float, don't put them on the float. But for the rest, I don't, or maybe we don't have our float, whatever. But at some point, there's going to be gatherings at Town Center. There's going to be people playing music and singing carols. There's going to be groups of people there. There's going to be things throughout this holiday that are not going to preclude anyone from maybe catching this virus. Go in Costco. There's people right next to each other all the time. There are so many, but we all try to pay attention when we're out there and do the best that we can. But I don't, no disrespect, Mr. Chapman, I think that, I'm not sure that would be a good idea to drive around neighborhoods with this parade, my opinion.
Someone who hadn't spoken yet, Mr. Rambo.
Yeah, so I'm in the boat of having a normal Christmas parade. And I think that our children have endured the brunt of a lot of the consequences of our shutdowns and all of these things. And the last thing I'm going to do is take Christmas, a normal Christmas, away from our children. And my family will be there, we'll be in our masks, and we're going to enjoy the parade. And if somebody doesn't want to go, they don't have to go.
Who has not spoken? Ms. Landing.
I don't have any prepared remarks, so that probably means I'll keep it really short, but which is good. On the other hand, I wish I did. I didn't even think that this would be in any way, shape, or form controversial. So I did not spend time really preparing, but I'd like to see what the data is right this minute for Mount Pleasant, because it's been really hard ever since DHEC took away the really easy to see zip code information. I can still get it thanks to Amanda. She showed me how, but it's really hard. I don't know why, because when I did finally get to it, what I saw was the numbers have gone way, way down. What is the data that is telling us as a council that we should potentially cancel a major outdoor event that truly is in cold weather a lot of the time? Sometimes it's raining. There's a lot of people that are vulnerable just to the cold and damp, much less to COVID. So the fact remains, if the data is showing that the numbers are going way down, and this is something that we can do where people can choose, are they vulnerable? If they're vulnerable, they shouldn't be there. If they're coming with their family, they better be careful with their family. They will make decisions for their family as to how to keep them safe. As for the Commerce Department, I certainly hope that they will respect both home rule in this, as well as, which we all preach about and talk about all the time, as well as the fact that we can only control the parade and what we put out there on our side of it. But families who want to come, I think, should be able to enjoy the holidays and be out there and enjoy this beautiful parade. Thank you.
Anybody this side? Mr. Santos?
Well, I was just going to say, I heard that Monk's Corner got approved already, and I know they're growing, so I say they're not our size, but they're getting our size really quick. And once again, I want to say, Chief, we called a meeting together. We had your, I guess, second in command was there. And he said that you guys had masks, y'all would be good. Everybody said that if we were going to do this, we would be okay. And so that's why I took it forward to the Recreation Committee. So, and now all of a sudden I start hearing all these things. You know, a couple of years ago, I was a Santa's helper, and we actually went on a fire truck through the neighborhoods. And we had a kid ride his bike out and almost get run over by the fire truck because the roads are so narrow and the truck's so big. Whereas out on this highway, you've got 4 lanes and people are over on the curbs, and we're in the middle. So you go around these neighborhoods, and you're really, to me, it's more dangerous. I saw him. Thank God he fell on the grass and not in the street. If he would have, we would have had an issue. So I think it's more dangerous to go in these neighborhoods with these big vehicles like this. Plus, if you're blowing the sirens and got horns going, you know, you've got senior citizens living in here. You've got other people, things going on. I'm not so sure they want that through their neighborhood as well. But I just think it's dangerous to go through the neighborhoods with those apparatus, especially our big fire trucks and things, because of what I've seen in the past. So I'm all for it. I'm ready to vote so we can move on.
We're still in discussion. I have some comments and some questions. First of all, Ms. Landing, in response, I would say that in the middle of a viral epidemic, when we have the Medical University of South Carolina here, that these are the things that we should discuss before we decide that we want to put on a parade, because our citizens' health comes first. The 80 police officers, the 70 public service workers who will have to pick up every item that has been handled and dropped, the recreation staff, the 44 fire staff, we need to put them first. They have been through, pardon my language, a hell of a year. We won't be picking up that trash. We won't be refereeing folks that walk up with no mask on and tell a family with kids, if you're afraid, you go home. That will happen. That has already started happening on social media. I've already seen it. Then if you're afraid, stay home. So if we're going to have a Christmas parade, especially in a year like this, let's not tell some of our citizens, why don't you just stay home? Let's do something that all of our citizens can do. Our folks in the in the nursing homes, the assisted living facilities, they've been under basic lockdown without visitors for 6 months. We can take this parade. We already have police districts and fire districts. It's certainly doable. And we can put the town, we can take Christmas to the people, and we can do it safely. Was anybody in a meeting this week with the medical university to hear them say where this stands from an epidemiology standpoint? If you were, or if it was at the committee meeting, please let me know. Okay, because they have something to say about this. They told the One Region Committee this on Wednesday. History of epidemiology is there will be a second wave. The history after 4th of July and after Memorial Day, everybody was all happy, let's open up, the numbers look good, and what happened, the numbers spiked. Talk to people in the restaurant and hospitality business, without any act of government, their business started tanking. I'm more concerned about the possible exposure to our town staff, that some of them will either have to quarantine over the holidays or be sick over the holidays. And when the chief can get up there, when he does not want to give us those things, and I certainly understand that, I think we ought to listen. We can have Christmas. We can have a Christmas parade, but it's not one where we're riding a float down the middle of the street and waving to everybody and taking credit for saving Christmas. We can take it to the neighborhoods. We can take it to the assisted living places and say, Mount Pleasant loves everybody. We have a Christmas parade for everybody. And then if we say it's all or nothing, 10,000 people per mile, has anybody, if you do 5,280 feet times 2 and divided by 6 with social distancing, and I know this is a rough number, that's a total of 1,760 people. We're expecting 10,000. We're expecting 5 times the number of normal social distancing, and our officers are going to be out there having to be, as the chief said, in enforcement situations. Why would we put our police in that position? Just to take credit for Christmas? Why would we ignore what the epidemiologists are saying, that a gathering of 10,000 people, as our numbers are finally down low and business is getting back to normal? I've got the local economic data. We're doing too well to do that. North Charleston has canceled theirs. I talked to Mayor Tecklenburg today. They haven't officially canceled theirs, but they expect to. And even the drive-through, which I think you started at the James Island County Park, where they drive through, they are making changes. They are not doing things as normal. They are doing things to protect the citizens. So I think we ought to have an alternative, and I think we ought to pursue it. And that way, we don't need the state's permission to take it to our people. We can just do it. That is not a huge public gathering. People can enjoy it with their family on their own property. What's wrong with that?
I call for the vote, Mr. Mayor.
If anyone else wants to speak, a call for the vote would require a motion and without discussion and a 2/3 vote, but it cannot happen if anyone still wants to speak. Ms. Lanning, do you still want to speak? Yes.
So first of all, we asked what are some of the options, and the only option we heard was the one about going through the neighborhoods.
There's more.
That's good to know now, but again, since we're talking about this tonight, it would have been good to have all the different options out there. And also, the fact that some of us are standing up for the idea of a normal Christmas parade is not because we're trying to take credit for saving Christmas. And I actually have a real problem with the fact that every discussion we have that has anything to do with COVID seems to be all about us against them all the time. There's this attitude that if we don't agree with what the mayor says, that somehow we're anti-mask, we're anti-medicine, we're anti-science, we're anti-caring about our community. And that's absurd. We need to stop that, because all that has done from the beginning of this process is create division. I would like very much for us to find a solution that works really well for everybody, and I don't think having this come up with only a very small amount of information and then hearing that there are other options, there are other ways, is the right way to go at it, because at this point, if there was an MUSC meeting this week that was important about the safety of our community, how come none of us were invited to it?
Well, I'll answer that, because it is the One Region Committee that they asked for representatives on, and we were invited, appointed. We've been meeting since March for hours every week for months and months to get businesses open, to listen to the medical university, to incorporate these things. And I didn't make this personal. You made this personal in the last thing. Excuse me, I get a chance to respond in the last meeting by criticizing my leadership over a mask ordinance. And let me tell you, you talk about us versus them
Please
or
stop.
divisive. Excuse me. This is part of a statewide and a region-wide coordinated effort to get this virus out of our lives and protect our citizens. We will be the only major metropolitan area in this state to put 10,000 people on 4-foot wide sidewalks. So you talk about being divisive. What we're telling Charleston, North Charleston, this region, and the rest of the state is we think we're different. We think that we can put 10,000 people on 4-foot wide sidewalks and everything's going to be okay, when the rest of the state is saying, we would really like you not to do that. This is the guidance that we get. This is the reaction that we get. And, you know, if y'all want to vote?
Yes, please.
All right. The motion is to approve the Christmas parade as, would you please restate your motion?
I may make the motion to make, make a motion to council that we approve a normal Mount Pleasant Christmas parade to be held this year.
All right.
Second.
And I second it.
Well, the motion was already made and seconded, so time for the vote. Will the clerk please call the roll? A yes vote is to approve.
Ms. Landing.
Yes.
Ms. Landing votes yes. Mr. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mr. Rambo.
Yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Santos.
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley.
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Chapman.
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Corley.
Yes.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt.
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Mayor Haney.
No.
Mayor Haney votes no.
By a vote of 7-2, the motion carries. Item 10 is council new business, first reading of an ordinance to amend section 30.35 of the Mount Pleasant Code of Ordinances related to public comments to council. This came out of the Police, Judicial, and Legal Committee. And just to clarify, if you've been reading the emails and the clarification from me as chairman of the committee, we started mainly to correct an information where fraudulent information was given to this council during a recent discussion. One of our residents let one of our council members know that their address was used by someone who does not apparently live in this town. We felt like there should be some penalty, some discouragement of that. And we already ask for name and address when you sign in. You have to give your name and address when you speak. What we wanted to do was come up with a amendment to the existing ordinance that says you must prove your address in your residency.
Move to deny.
Second.
We have a motion to deny, and we have a second. We are in discussion. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Whitley.
So I placed this item on the agenda because a citizen came to me with multiple instances at one of our meetings of people providing a false name and or a false address for the record. And I think it's important for people to be truthful about that when they're coming before a public body and speaking publicly to us. So that's why I asked for that to be on there. There seemed to be some confusion of people feeling like we were limiting time somehow, and that's not the case at all. That the actually existing ordinance, if you could scroll forward to the existing ordinance. We don't have that. But if you go to the actual town website and look at the ordinance itself, it already says council may limit the may limit the public comment.
May restrict the time period, yes, ma'am.
Right, so it already says that, and then it
Yes,
already
ma'am.
says that citizens are limited to 1 to 3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So those things are already in there, and this issue that I brought forth is to simply add a fine for lying about your name and or residence. So and I know that the people that I've spoken with were concerned about those other items being in that ordinance with that time limitation, 1 to 3, and with that council may limit the time. So what I would suggest is that this go back to PJL, where we can address that issue, as well as this fine for lying, because I don't think that any of us want to be lied to about someone's name and address. One of the examples the mayor provided was, if we have an issue pertaining to a certain neighborhood and people are coming who are not from that neighborhood, but speaking, but lying about that they're an interested party. And that would be something that we wouldn't want to happen in front of us. So, I would ask that if the motion could be withdrawn and this be sent back to committee, I would appreciate that.
Ms. Corley, let me ask, your motion to deny, is it on the ID or because the committee didn't propose the limit on speaking? We found out at the meeting that ordinance already exists, but it only said council may limit it, did not say a majority of council. Is that correct?
It did, sir. And as we were going through that discussion, there was an opportunity at least to say how it should be done. And this, as written, doesn't restrict in any way what is currently available. Just so council's aware, I know we heard some comments and some letters indicating that. It certainly does not do that.
No, and it was never to limit the amount of time that citizens could speak. It was individually, it was to limit, because I've done a little looking to Section 43, Item 35 of Robert's Rules, which we have adopted by ordinance, does put limits on, we can limit our debate, we can limit anything, and we did that recently in the CIP meeting, where we said we would spend 90 minutes on one portion. So we were able to do that under Robert's Rules. We didn't have to invoke it, but we have the authority to do that. So if that's the hang-up, I mean, that's in Robert's Rules. It's never been invoked. We've never limited the time, even when it's gone hours, but as long as Robert's Rules is adopted by ordinance, we will always have that option. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir, that is true. And actually, council last year, when we did the comprehensive changes, actually expanded the speaking because it used to be limited and now it's not.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, I'm
I
sorry.
think my concern with it, right off the bat, when I heard it during committee, was just another ordinance. Like, how many times has this happened? How do we know this even happened? Did somebody go back and look at the film to see who the person was and where they actually lived? And, like, does that happen a lot? I just think we're going with an ordinance when, maybe we had a person who shouldn't have been here. And I get the whole lying piece. That was interesting, because we are being influenced when people speak to us. And I have changed my mind on this podium before. I thought I felt something, and then somebody said something, and I looked at something differently, but I just don't know that something we need an ordinance for. Yes. John?
Let me address, Ms. Whitley addressed, if you would withdraw the motion, we would take this back to the committee.
No.
The question was posed to Mrs. Corley. Okay, you made the motion in a second. Yes, sir, Mr. Santos.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was the one that wrote this original ordinance back in 1998. So for the last 20 years, we've never had an issue. Be honest with you, I didn't even pay attention to where people say their address is. I want to hear the content of their speech. I want to hear what they have to say. So this issue is not, she asked the question, has it been a problem before? Not in the 20 years since I wrote this has we ever had an issue. This is the first time I've ever heard an issue about somebody's address. And frankly, if people take the time to come here to speak about something, I want to hear it. If they take the time out of their life to come here, fight this traffic, and come before us to speak about an issue, it's up to us to make the decision whether we're going to vote for something or not. But we could be missing out on some really good information, but somebody who's afraid maybe to give their address, or, doesn't matter to me. Where they live doesn't really matter. It's the content of their remarks that I think is what's relevant, to me anyhow. So anyway, we haven't had any issues since you asked that question.
Mrs. Whitley.
I think that the issue is that the fake addresses that were given belong to actual people. People who were violated by having someone provide a fake address, a real address that doesn't belong to them, and making public comments that are streamed on YouTube and are public record, that now their address is associated with these comments.
And may I add, also approved in our minutes, because when that person represents that that's their address, and we approve the minutes, we are confirming that this person said they live at that address, and that's a problem. I do want to, Ms. Santos, and I'll ask Mr. Pagliarini, we do require every speaker to give their name and their address anyway. So the ID question doesn't change the fact that you're required to give your address.
Right.
It just says you have to prove it, yeah.
Absolutely, and the ordinance also says you have up to 3 minutes. Somebody was talking about us limiting people's right to speak. By going to 2 minutes, we are basically limiting their right to speak because the ordinance says up to 3 minutes. And I did that because some people don't talk much, some people, have, more to say. So, for me, we're not really even following the intent of the ordinance, which was giving people up to 3 minutes. We're cutting it at 2. So I guess, when you say we're stopping people from being able to speak, that kind of goes toward that, if you ask me.
Ms. Lanning?
We had a retreat early in the year, and each of us were to share our thoughts on our vision statement for the year and for the next 5 years. We actually decided we wanted to look out a little longer. And one of the first things I said in my vision statement is that I hope that we as council can move forward together and not feel that we have to create a rule or an ordinance for every little thing that comes along. That was kind of blown out of the water this year, some of it understandably so. But this is a good example where, again, I think that Councilman Corley's denial on this ordinance amendment is appropriate because we don't have this happen very often. If it's happened at all, I guess it's a shame that people lie. But people lie all the time, unfortunately, and we have to do the best we can as council to discern what the truth is and try to make good decisions based on that. But I don't think putting a $100 fine, and what are we going to start doing? I guess we'll ask for an ID, we'll ask for, I don't know, maybe we'll start getting a fingerprint, whatever. I just think it's absurd. That's what I think. I think we need to leave things as they are now. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. O'Rourke.
I don't know who this question is for, but the ordinance says 1 to 3 years, did you say?
No,
1 to 3 minutes.
1 to
Or
3.
1 to 3 hours?
1 to 3
1 to
minutes.
3 minutes.
1 to 3 minutes.
I have a really good joke about that, but I won't
Or it says
say
up to 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Okay. But how did we land at 2? Is this something that, we're at 2, but and I'm not saying it's good or bad or whatever. I'm just saying, why not 1, why not 3? What, and does it say council chooses this, or
No,
does
sir.
the chair choose this, or?
The ordinance provides that it is 1 to 3 minutes, and it
But
is
we're at 2. Since I've been on council,
And that is
everybody
a-
comes up and gets 2
Yes,
minutes.
sir, that's a chair.
Oh, okay.
That's a chair
That's been a
decision.
practice for the 5 years that I've been here.
Okay.
Before I was
Yes,
here.
sir.
All right.
But the ordinance does provide 1 to 3.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
what happens if our public comment period goes beyond 30 minutes?
Yes, sir. That, I was not clear. If you were listening to the PJL, that was our old ordinance. It has been replaced when we did the comprehensive review and changes to our agendas and the like. Now there is no limit. As I said earlier, there used to be, but council actually expanded that right. And now it is a provision that council may move to end public comment at some point.
We've sat here for
I hope we never do that.
We never have, but and just from the committee, something that could happen is we have time-sensitive things that we have to vote on, and if we had a situation where there were 5 hours worth of speakers signed up, we may have to, at some point, limit not each speaker's amount of time, the total amount of time, so we can do the business that we have to do, and some people's rights and plans are dependent on things passing within certain deadlines. And as long as we have Robert's rules, we can set a limit on debate. We can set limits on lots of things. So that in and of itself, I've never seen that invoked. I've been here 5 years, you've been here 20 years. We have never limited time for public input. It's never been done.
You're right.
So what happens now? Because I called it an
Call the question?
If anyone else wants to speak, yes, Ms. Hyatt, you have the right to speak.
I was just going to ask if Mr. Paglarini could be very specific, just for the public, about what we were actually changing. Because we got a lot of emails that people didn't have a problem with ID as much as they had with the idea of limiting time, which was not part of what we were doing. So we really needed to make it clear to the public that limiting their speech was never the plan. So what exactly is the statement for the public
Yes,
that we
ma'am.
would be changing?
The direction was to provide an opportunity to require proof of address, and that is it.
That's the
All other
only-
provisions remain as they were, and that is addressed in that 2 parts, signing in, whether it be online or in person, And again, for the benefit of council who does not see those sign-in sheets when the person is addressing council. And that is exactly what the ordinance would change.
So the public was just misunderstood and thought that we were trying to limit time. But
Yes.
that was not part of what the plan was.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I just want
Mr.
to make
Rambo.
that clear.
One thing that was interesting out of those discussions is actually, by ordinance, we don't currently require a name and address.
That's
Is that
correct, sir.
correct?
That's correct.
So, thinking out loud, one solution would just be to let people come up and speak and not make them say their address. Maybe making them say their address makes them feel uncomfortable about, and not sharing their true opinions or whatever, and then that would solve the problem of giving a fake address. Just let people come up and speak. Hey, I'm Bob or whatever, and here's my issue. So, anyway, that I just came to my head.
Ms. Landing and then Ms. Hyatt.
The proposed amendment specifically calls for if someone is somehow caught lying, that it was a infraction that would be charged a $100 fine. And I think that we should call the question on tonight. I mean, I know we need more discussion if that's what we need, but we are discussing all different things here, and the ordinance is about this subject, and there's been a motion to deny, and it's seconded.
Ms. Hyatt.
To what Mr. Rambo said, anyone is allowed to speak. It doesn't matter where they live, but it does help us in knowing whether the person is directly affected by decisions we make. So I do think it's important for people to let us know where they live when they're addressing a situation so that we can consider how they're affected by our decisions. But I do like to know where they live. I would want to eliminate that.
Were you asking to be recognized? Sure.
Having trouble turning it.
Okay.
Oh, now turn it off again. Okay, sorry. I guess my question with that was, if this doesn't pass, or even if it does pass first reading right now, we are just asking people or telling people they have to say their name and address for the record, but really they don't. Am I wrong? I mean, if somebody was like, well, no, then they can just speak, because the ordinance doesn't require them to say their name and address.
No, sir, and I don't want to get too far into that. The ordinance does not.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
okay,
that is correct.
All right.
However, as in any meeting, any public body, there are customs, and the chair directs those. And
Okay.
so it's not wrong to do so. It is.
Well, no, that's fine. That was
absolutely
just my
within the purview of this
question. I
council.
just wasn't
Yes,
sure,
sir.
yeah, how that worked. Yeah.
So before we vote, the chair gets to speak as well. To me, it's no different than needing a valid ID to vote. If you're trying to influence an act of government that affects the citizens of this town, and you come here and you say, for instance, I live in 6 Mile and I'm all for this rezoning of this trailer park, and you bring 10 friends because you have a vested interest in that, and you don't live in 6 Mile, then we could make a decision to the detriment of our citizens based on fraudulent information. There was fraudulent information given here tonight, and it was about me personally. People do give fraudulent information during public comments. So if we're going to ask for their address, which the chair is going to continue, that's been the practice ever since I've been on here, and Gary probably ever since you've been on here. I think that we owe it to our citizens, just like we want IDs when you vote to put people up here. We ought to have proof of ID if you're going to tell us that this affects you when, in fact, it may not affect you at all. All right, so we have a motion, and the motion is to deny. So a yes vote is to deny, and a no vote would keep the, a no vote would not be voting down the ordinance. We'll just leave it at that. Is everybody clear? If you vote yes, it is to deny. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mr. Rambo.
Yes.
Mr. Rambo votes yes. Mr. Santos.
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley.
No.
Ms. Whitley votes no. Mr. Chapman.
No.
Mr. Chapman votes no. Ms. Corley.
Yes.
Ms. Corley votes yes. Ms. Hyatt.
No.
Ms. Hyatt votes no. Ms. Landing.
Yes.
Ms. Landing votes yes. Mayor Haney.
No.
Mayor Haney votes no.
So by a 5-4 vote, the motion is denied. Item number 2 under section 10 is a
Motion to approve.
resolution. What's that?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve item number 2, which is
Second.
a memorandum of understanding that has to do with school resource officers. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That's a resolution. I guess you don't have to read the numbers.
No, sir.
Item 10C is executive session. If there is a motion and it is successful, it would be for legal and contractual advice related to the case Shem Creek Development Corporation versus the Town of Mount Pleasant, and also for personnel with discussion with regard to the court administrator and consideration of applications submitted to serve on the Settlement Communities Task Force. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Before we vote, let me give notice that council may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. All in favor of the motion to go into executive session for the reasons given, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We are in executive session. Courtroom B?
Yes.
Executive session, no votes were cast, no action was taken. Are there any motions to result from the information or deliberations?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion on item 1 that we proceed as discussed in executive session.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Next.
I would like to make a motion regarding the appointment of individuals to serve on the Settlement Communities Task Force. I move that we appoint the following individuals: Lily Johnson, Laura Pirano, Cassandra Johnson Davis, George Freeman, John Carson, Bernard King, Pearl Askew, Charlotte Jenkins, Patricia Graham, Kathy Smalls, Theodosia Lyles, Cheryl German, Ed Lee, Jacqueline Gore, Rudine Washington, Ryan Pinkney, and Kim Williams.
We have a motion to nominate those as a slate. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Before we vote, I think we want to thank the committee for going through those, and we look forward to the establishment of this task force. All in favor of the nominees by slate, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and we thank our citizens for applying and being willing to serve. There being nothing further before this body, we stand adjourned.
Okay. 11 more. 11 more.